They think you and I are sellouts, but at the end of the day, we really care about the black community. We see the future in the black community. We see that the black community can do better.
I think the majority of Black America, we are conservative. We just refuse to admit it because of whatever the Republican Party did to us.
And it's irritating when you get politicians or you get prominent people online. Bro, our streets are toe up. Some of y'all rich people, y'all moved out of the black neighborhood. You living in the white neighborhood, blaming the white people for what's happening in the black neighborhood. We got to get out of that in order to see a change.
And had I known then what I know now, the dangers and the disparities of creating a one-parent household out of wedlock, I wouldn't recommend that for anyone.
What are some of the stances that you believe you are going to take that's going to help the people of Fort Worth and people of Dallas in the 33rd District? Synergy is actually live. It's 5 years in the making, 3 years in formulation, and I don't even know I'm like in shock that we finally got it in production. All of our staff are now mandated to drink Synergy. I'll just play it. No, but for real, if they want an energy drink, they got to drink Synergy. Can't bring nothing else up in this building. But it's an incredible product, all natural product. If you take the day and the night together, that's when you get complete energy, which a lot of energy companies don't want to tell you because they need you to be tired so you can have to use their energy drinks. But we want you to get a great night's sleep so you wake up with energy and also have sustainable energy and focus throughout the day. A bunch of natural ingredients. We use ashwagandha, magnesium, melatonin in the night drink. And we use a bunch of other nootropics in the day drink that will give you clean, sustainable energy. No crashing, none of that bull crap. Just straight quality energy. And eventually I'm gonna put my formulator on here because I think that we need to give him a shout out because I want to introduce you guys to him. Like, we don't private label this stuff. We had it formulated from scratch. I mean, we talked to a person. I said I need it to be like this. I need it to taste good. I need it to have efficacy. I want all of the best supplement products and vitamins you can put in an energy drink that can give you good energy without screwing you over. So make sure you go to synergylife.com, synergylife.com. And for everybody else that purchased and pre-order, when you get it, taste it, and leave a review. Give us a 5-star if you believe it's 5-star worthy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I told you, I manifested this. I said that I'm going to interview this young lady who's incredibly smart, and I loved everything that she had to say. And Payton Jackson is going to come on to the show. We're going to interview, we're going to have a great conversation. I had a small conversation with her before we started, and I am so excited to talk to Payton. And she is currently running for the 33rd District in the state of Texas for U.S. Congress. And we have to put our support behind her because I want her to win. We need more people of the melanin. Like I always say, we need more people of color in office that are doing the right things, that can stand up for the community. So without further ado, if you guys forgot who Payton Jackson is, which I don't know how you would, if you have, let's watch the clip that went mega viral, and then we're going to talk to Payton.
When I first announced my run for Congress, I had this random white woman, liberal, walk up to me and ask, well, what about you isn't Democrat? To which I responded, well, besides my skin color, what about me is Democrat? And it was at that very moment that she realized that God gave her enough common sense to ask me about my values. Now, don't get me wrong, I was raised to vote Democrat down the ballot, so when I first started, I would say things like, I'm a Republican, but I'm not a conservative. But now I know all too well I am a full-fledged, hardcore conservative, and I'm proud of it. I mean, my favorite saying is I was born black, not Democrat. But in all seriousness, whenever I began to think for myself politically, the choice was easy. I mean, why would I want to belong to a party whose mission is to infringe on the Second Amendment as if a criminal would ever participate in something like a mandatory buyback? Why would I want to belong to and endorse a godless party? Because there is no such thing, and I mean no such thing as a trans child. We have confused children and sick, enabling adults. Why would I want to belong to a party that takes pride in shedding innocent blood? Number one, as if that's not what God hates. Number two, as if there's not a black market for baby organs. And number three, as if abortion clinics didn't start in the hood. Because if you think Trump is bad, you should research exactly who Margaret Sanger was. But speaking of the black community, why would I want to belong to a party who's responsible for the foundation of the Triple K? But it's not just that. Supposedly in the 1900s, the party switched, right? But what never changed, what I noticed never change is Democrats' love for immigration and how they have always prioritized that over the Black community. I mean, imagine every single Democrat leader helping you joke about what a Black job is in 2024, exposing your ignorance on 1924 and how imperative the Immigration Act of that year was, how it was all reversed in 1965 with the Hart-Celler Act, how Congress refuses the advice of the Rockefeller Commission and the Hesburgh Commission, and how to this day they refuse to adopt the Barbara Jordan Blueprint, validating every single thing that Dr. Claude Anderson spoke of generally, but specifically what Mrs. King spoke of in 1991 with her letter to Congress. Now look, I'm not saying that the Republican Party is perfect. No, nobody's perfect. What I'm saying is I saw with Malcolm X when he said that the liberals were the worst thing that could ever happen to the Western Hemisphere, but y'all ignore that, just like how y'all ignore LBJ saying, and I quote, "I'm going to have Negroes voting Democrat for the next 200 years, and by God, 60 years later, I see no sign of recourse, but rest assured your vote is your voice, even if it is a whisper."
All right, welcome to the show, Payton. I'm so excited to talk to you. I mean, I think we were having a good conversation before the camera started. I was like, man, we got to get this on camera. So can you tell us a little bit about you, Payton? Because initially I thought that you grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, and you were born and raised there and went to school there. But obviously that wasn't your path. You still are a staunch supporter in Fort Worth. Come to find out that one of the guys that you had a controversy with, I went to high school with. And so let's start from there. Where did you come from? Where were you raised at? And how did you get to the point of that viral video that we saw?
Well, I'm originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My family moved to South Dallas off of Hatcher when Hatcher was Hatcher, right after Hurricane Katrina. We stayed in the Rose months off Hatcher. And I moved to Fort Worth. I got into politics by way of public speaking. And first and foremost, I want to announce that is my passion. I don't care about being a politician. I don't care about being a career politician or a sitting politician or anything. I've been running Fort Worth since I got here, if I can say, humbly, of course. I'm very passionate about speaking, and I started at the city council level in Fort Worth initially, but ironically, I had my Jasmine Crockett phase, and I went on a North Texas tour for reparations once I realized that speaking was my passion, and I wanted to speak on a topic that no one wanted to speak about. Now, at the time, I was still hanging with Democrats, but it was during that time period, it was during my Jasmine Crockett phase that I realized, wait a minute, Democrats are no different from Republicans. And that's when I started to pay attention to policy instead of only voting straight ticket, because I was raised to vote Democrat down the ballot. And I said that in the speech. But once I began to pay attention to policy, everything changed. Once I paid attention to who's voting on what and how at the city council level, at the school board level, at the county commissioner level, and typing in congress.gov to see what my representative is doing in Congress, I was like, wait a minute, I'm conservative. So I attempted to run as a Republican for the same seat that I'm running for now, which is U.S. House District 33 against Mark Vesey. But I missed the deadline. I realized very late on that it cost $3,000 to file for office for that seat. So I ran as an independent, but I was taken off the ballot last minute due to a lack of signatures. Out of 500, I only had like 430 that were valid. And then I just wrapped up a city council race that was completely insulting. And now I'm back at it again with District 33. But my background is in accounting. I have a bachelor's. I'm in real estate. I'm very passionate about that. I've been in real estate since 2020 or 2021. I started with Airbnb. I dabbled with traveling nurses and regular long-term tenants, but now I exclusively work with HAP contracts, which is with the Section 8 program in the state of Texas.
Awesome. That's great. I love your story. I have to hear more of your story. So when you were growing up, you were like, I want to see, because I didn't grow up in Baton. I didn't grow up in Louisiana, right? I mean, in Texas, you have an idea about people from Louisiana. One is that their accent is insane. So you must have lost a little bit of your accent, because I mean, the girls that from Louisiana that came to my school at Dunbar after Katrina, I mean, that girl used to say, "What you gonna say it?" I was like, "What you gonna say it?" I guess she meant what you trying to say. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's a whole different accent world in Louisiana. But so how did you grow up? I mean, did you grow up in a two-family home? Did you grow up in the inner city? Did you grow up in affluent, middle class? What was your upbringing?
I, a little bit of everything. So in Louisiana, it was more country, and I blame my papa for that. I knew how to shoot a gun before I knew how to drive. But when I came to Dallas, it was a little bit more city. And while we were in Louisiana and a little bit when we were in Texas, I grew up in a two-parent household because my mom was married to my stepdad, but then they got divorced. So it went from a two-parent household to eventually a one-parent household. Both were dysfunctional, but that's the importance of thinking independently. And before we were rolling, we had a small conversation about marriage, and we shared similarities. In my early 20s, the last thing I wanted to hear about was marriage. But I was still having sex unprotected and actually had a child on purpose. My son wasn't made by mistake. And had I known then what I know now, the dangers and the disparities of creating a one parent household out of wedlock, I wouldn't recommend that for anyone. And it's one of the things that we need to change in our education system is how we talk about sex ed to the future of America to promote traditional families.
100,000%. I think that when I was growing up, they mostly encourage you. Well, they didn't encourage you to do it, but they didn't dissuade you from doing it. They didn't tell you the side effects of the emotional aspect of having children out of wedlock. And so they would tell
Right.
you, if you're going to do this is how you use protection, and this is what STDs are and all these other things. But they didn't tell you that you probably should be married, because if you don't get married, statistically proven that this is going to happen, or the turmoil that you may cause in your child's life. Now, it's not inevitable. I had a kid out of wedlock. I'm not here preaching and acting like I'm holier than thou. I had a kid in college out of wedlock. Me and his mama probably had never went on a date before we ended up having a kid together. We were just in lust, right? Some people in love, we were in lust. I think that some part we thought we really liked each other, but obviously we weren't connected on the same level and we weren't on the same page. But I had a kid out of wedlock, and it has been probably one of the most difficult things that I've ever experienced in my life, not only for me, but for your child, right? He had to split time between mom and daddy. He didn't have mom and daddy together. And having the experience now where I'm married, it shows me that it's a very big difference between having mom and daddy at home and the parents being separated. Can I ask you real quick about your dad? If it's not too
No, go ahead.
controversial, but because you mentioned your mom and your stepdad, did you know your
Yes.
dad growing up? Or how was that?
I knew of him very late on. I wasn't made aware of who my dad was until the sixth grade. And you got the exclusive on that. But one random day, my mother decided to tell me who my real dad was. And this was after being sexually abused by her husband. I found out who my dad was, all of his ambitions, but he ended up dying by suicide when I was 4. Yeah. So I thought when I got the job at MHMR in your city for 988 that would be very embracing for me. But my time in the mental health industry was everything but embracing. But yes, my dad died when I was about 4.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that. It's also an issue that we both probably share a passion about is the broken families. I hate to say this, and it's true, but that doesn't mean it's for every black person. But every single black woman that I've ever dated in my life either didn't know their father, didn't have a good relationship with their father, or was in a broken family. And that's not an indictment on black women or anything like that. It's just, it's incredibly sad that culturally we are raised, unfortunately, in these environments where mama and daddy aren't together. And you mentioned before the passion you have about that. I'll let you speak on that.
Well, yeah, I really want to change sex ed. Well, I want to change the public school system in general, but with sex ed, a piece of my vision includes taking field trips down to the family courthouse. You need to be introduced into reality because it's not just STDs, but we also need to talk about soul ties and making a premature decision with someone who you are not locked in with. Creating a baby with someone is a bigger commitment than marriage. And I hate to say it, it's no disrespect to marriage. Hopefully I'll get there one day. But if you have a baby with someone who wants the polar opposite of you when co-parenting, or that's bitter, we need to have that conversation, especially with our little boys. Hey, you have really no rights in this family court system, and potentially you could forfeit 20% of your income. And you only get 4 days out the month to see your child, 4 to 6 days out the month, every other weekend. And to our young women, we need to explain, hey, there's no free healthcare. I mean, there's no free childcare. Childcare for babysitting is the equivalent to rent. So do you really want that? But in our community, or it's more than our community, but speaking of the Black community, we rely on the welfare system, which is a crippling system in itself. It's not helping us. So not only do we need to be more careful with who we let into our bodies as women, we need to be more careful in the Black community in general. But it's always a mixed match. There's good women with bad men and bad men with good women and vice versa. It's never equal. There's always a bitter party. So we have to fix that.
Why do you think that occurs? And why do you think that happens? Is it because of the historical prejudice and racism and slavery? Is that the majority of the reason why we see the negative effects in the community? Or is it a combination of that plus culture? Like what do you think is the origin or the contributing factor to why this is incredibly prevalent in communities that we grew up in?
Well, we talk about breaking generational curses all the time. But 2 generational curses that I don't see us working towards is a political one. We are hardcore Democrat, especially the demographic that claims to be the most educated with all of these degrees. They vote the most ignorantly. But it's also what we experience in our culture, what we see in our neighborhoods. Like you mentioned earlier, I know very few men and women in the Black community that have a 2-parent household. I'm actually surprised that they do. You grew up with mom and dad? That's a shocker to me. And until we decide to break that, nothing will change. But the majority that I see are church women that are complete hypocrites, or city girls, and neither one are helping our community, if we're being honest.
So you were inspired, or you are inspired to run for the 33rd district in Congress in the state of Texas, which covers Arlington, it covers Fort Worth, Dallas. I mean, it's a pretty significant congressional seat. What inspired you most? Like what made you feel like, you know what, the real estate thing that I've been doing, you know, obviously speaking and communicating is a passion of mine, but I feel that I need to make this happen. Like what got you on that path to say, I'm going to run for office because I want to make a difference?
I decided to get into office. I'm not going to lie. Originally, it was a TikTok ban because BC supported that. I'm so against that. But that's what inspired me or embraced me to actually go on to congress.gov. That was the first bill that I looked up, but it inspired me to go through all of the bills, which is very boring. Oh, it is a very boring thing to do, to read through bills, but you have to do it to stay informed. And when I read through his bills that he's authored or that he has supported, I was disgusted. This man has been in office for more than a decade, and you can't tell. You can't tell. Like, what is the major thing that you have done? But the problem is that I realized this past Saturday with the recent election, it's the same people that's coming to vote out. We can't call the politician corrupt if the community is allowing this. We can't say, oh, my vote is my voice, and then you don't even come out.
You referring to Mark Vesey?
Both of them, but Chris Nettles and Mark, they're both passive politicians.
So is Chris Nettles? Let's get to Chris. So is Chris Nettles running for Congress too?
No. So we were in a city council race.
Okay,
that's what we just wrapped. Yeah,
Chris. Just so the audience know, I went to school with Chris Nettles. Like literally, I think we went to either Crowley Middle School or high school together. But I remember Chris Nettles, and I was actually shocked that he was running for school city council, because he had been a city council member, I believe, for a while. But I remember he was a pastor first, and then I seen him at city council, and I was really excited for him because I remember who he was in middle school, high school, and I didn't think he was that kind of person. But then I say, look, he got saved. He's now preaching. He's a pastor. Look, that's great. That's good. A dude that I know is supporting the city that we grew up in, and lo and behold, it doesn't sound like who I think he is.
Well, I mean, I can't name any major thing that he's done in the last 4 years, but maybe the 1,700 that came and voted for him can. I can't. But
and so you ran against him now as Mark Vesey, who's I think he's either currently the congressional person, and then he's running for re-election, and you running to challenge him.
Yes.
And so what inspired you most to say, I'm going to pick this race to get into right now?
Looking at the bills, like I was looking at how much money we wasted way before Doge was even a thing. Way before Elon came into play. And you don't have to be an accountant to want to actually address things like, why hasn't the DOD ever passed an audit? Now, I believe in a strong defense. I will always believe in protecting this country. But that department that gets the biggest chunk of our federal budget, they need to be held accountable. Why can't they pass an audit? And we don't have major Democrats. We have a few, but we don't have any major Democrats making any noise about that, or any of the wasteful spending happening on a federal, state, or local level. We just don't have it, especially if they're Black. And I hate to say that. I hate to say that, but we don't have people actually holding the quota, the status quo accountable in government.
Yeah, I've seen that time and time again. And one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you too is that I thought you had such an incredible voice. You were bold. And I feel like we need more representation of people who are not like everybody else, right? I mean, I'm okay with a person who's Black, white, or whatever being a Democrat or Republican. It doesn't bother me as long as a person has a good faith argument as to what they represent or what they stand for. Because some people may agree with some things that Democrats do, and if that's your stance, that's your stance. But I like to see more Black people who are conservative or have conservative ideologies get in positions of power, because I do think, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, I think most Black people in America are conservative. I just think we don't realize it. Like, because I grew up.
We realize it. We don't want to admit it. We don't want to admit it, especially if we're talking about the elders in the Black community. They don't believe, especially in all of this gay agenda that's being pushed to our kids. They don't agree with that. I think the majority of Black America, we are conservative. We just refuse to admit it because of whatever the Republican Party did to us. And now we have Trump, and everybody's against Trump, and they think that he runs the Republican Party, which in my opinion is not true, because there's division within the Republican Party in regards to Trump and some of his tactics. But regardless, why are you identifying with a political party? Why are you idolizing a political party over your personal and faith values? That's just counterproductive.
Yeah, I see that. I see it often. Because I even look at my family, some people in my family, not everybody. I think more people in my family voted Republican this time than ever before. But in the past, I was raised conservative. Like, we weren't raised with that LGBTQ stuff. We went to church every Sunday. My dad held us accountable to things that we done. My dad worked hard, believed in capitalism. I can't see any aspect of my upbringing that would align with anything that Democrats are doing today. Yet, and still, I think the belief is that we are Democrats. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to support you, because I'm like, we need some people in office that can give us a fair, balanced representation. Not all of us are Democrats. Not all of us are leftists or are believing in this foolery.
But so we in the Black community, we have two ways of thinking. We have ignorant, which is just a lack of knowledge or understanding, and that's fair. We all can be educated. I don't know everything. I never claim to know everything. But we also have the population that resembles ignorance, meaning you don't want to know. We have ignorant and we have ignorance. The second option, the latter, you don't want to know. You're not willing to be educated. And from my experience, and I've been going door to door for 3 years now, because I ran for this district a couple of years ago. A lot of Black people don't want to know. And that's before saying anything about the Republican Party. Like when I knocked on doors and I met with Black people, I immediately expected them to slam the door in my face, because that was the reaction that I would get. Not because they knew who the incumbent was, not because they knew that I was running as a Republican or independent. They just didn't care about politics. But we are the very same people that say, oh, I'm hardcore Democrat. You've never been to a city council meeting. You've never been to a school board meeting. You've never been to your county commissioner's meeting. You have your phone in your hand all day. You've never typed in congress.gov to see what your representative is voting on. But you don't even know who represents you. So who would you even be looking for? It's pure ignorance. But when you have people like me, the first politician that you've ever seen in your neighborhood knocking to your door, because everything that I do is grassroots. I'm not bought and sold. I do know I need the donations, but I'm not bought and sold. So I'm going door to door. I want to have that conversation with you. What would you like to see change in your neighborhood? If you could make any law, what would it be? I want to have those small conversations with you. But the second you say anything about politics to a Black person, 90% of the time they're going to slam the door in your face. Or if you get so far to explain that you're not a Democrat and you have validity behind it, oh, I can't vote for you and you Trump. And why are you mad at Trump and you're not holding your city council accountable? Look at your neighborhood. Come on now.
You get, oh my goodness, you it's like music to my ears, man. I say this stuff all the time, and I feel like people they think I'm the only one talking like this. I mean, what you're saying is 100% true. When I was growing up, we didn't vote. I never saw a person vote. I didn't know where you can vote, didn't know how to vote, didn't know what to vote. I just knew I was a Democrat, and I was a kid. I wasn't even eligible to vote, but I knew I was a Democrat. And then when I got older, 18 years old, I didn't vote. Nobody on my team voted when I played football at college. Nobody talked about it. We didn't do anything. You could ask me, who was this politician? Who was the vice president? I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you when Obama was in office. I wouldn't be able to tell you the vice president when I was there. I just knew Obama, so I do understand where you're coming from. And people think that you and I maybe, and I'm not going to speak for you. I know, because I do this a lot. I get on Black people's head all the time, and they think I don't know if you do it a lot, but they think you and I are sellouts, but at the end of the day, we really care about the Black community. We see the future in the Black community. We see that the Black community can do better. And it's irritating when you get politicians or you get prominent people online and they talking all this jazz and you're like, bro, our streets are toe up. Some of y'all rich people, y'all moved out of the Black neighborhood. You living in the white neighborhood, blaming the white people for what's happening in the Black neighborhood. We got to get out of that in order to see a change. So what's some of the big political stances that you believe that you are going to take as a congressional member that Mark Vesey isn't taking right now, right? I think you had mentioned the spending. You had mentioned some other things that he's neglecting. What are some of the stances that you believe you are going to take that's going to help the people of Fort Worth and people of Dallas in the 33rd district?
So you're right. I do want to address the spending, the national debt. I have to get rid of that. But the number one thing on my list, no tax on income. Number one. Now, we already have a bill out. It's HR 25. I either want to tweak that one or make my own. But the next person that asks me, when was America ever great? Just because they hate when Trump or Trumpers say, make America great again, I'm going to say when we stood up to taxes. The fact that we are taxing income, knowing that our federal minimum wage is $7.25 is just insane. The fact that we're taxing property, yet we claim that we have a housing crisis or a rental crisis is just insane. It's insane. So number one on my list is no tax on income. And that covers a few areas, which is on my website. But two, I want to defend the 2A movement. The 2A, the Second Amendment. I am a proud open carrier in the state of Texas.
I see you on your pictures. You got that gun on your hip every time you walking around.
Always, especially in Fort Worth. I don't know when the last time you've been to Fort Worth, but I go every night. It is crazy out here in Fort Worth. But also addressing gun safety with that, because I know that we have senseless people with guns. And also reforming our public education system on a federal level. I was not against the dismantling of the U.S. Department of Education. I think we wasted a lot of time. But what I want to introduce is a more trades promoted route. We need to be talking about trades instead of college. I mean, I have an accounting degree. It's on the wall, but that's the most that I've done with it. And honestly, I didn't need the accounting degree. I could have either gotten that in high school, or someone in the public school system should have handed me the Rich Dad Poor Dad series, and I would have been okay. We need to learn about construction, plumbing, electricity, welding. We need to push more trades instead of these overpriced universities. And that's something that I was shocked to see Trump do, but he talked about it during his campaign. And I am very proud of what Trump has done. And I haven't announced this publicly, but I voted for him, and I am psyched with his performance thus far. I didn't pay attention last time. Unfortunately, I did vote for Biden when he ran. And that was probably the worst decision that I could have ever made. But again, I regret nothing, because I needed that ignorant voting under my belt, because one of the major topics that really woke me up was the border crisis. Before Trump returned back to this gracious country as our leader, we had more than 160 countries invading our border, stealing all of our resources. But during the cycle, I was reading a book called Back of the Hiring Line that was given to me, and it introduced me to the history and the effects of mass immigration on the Black community. And that's where I found out about the 1991 letter from Mrs. King that she sent to Congress, where in that letter, and in comparison to what Trump said at the debate with Harris, they basically went bar for bar when it comes to Black and brown jobs. How could you possibly say that people running over our border into our country, coming to work for $2 in comparison to our $7, doesn't have an effect on Black jobs? And our community may not be able to say, oh, I don't know what a Black job is, but it's not just Black jobs. It's Black education, it's Black housing, it's Black resources. Now, in Tarrant County, we're dealing with an issue, or I'm not dealing with it, but the Democrats are dealing with an issue where the conservatives are trying to redraw our map for the county level. I don't care about that, because Democrats will promote an open border, and what they won't say is that's their own form of voter suppression. When you have neighborhoods like South Poly that used to be predominantly Black, and we had a whole bunch of people coming through, all of these developers coming through as the highest bidder. And in the Black community, we don't practice estate planning. We don't know anything about trust funds. None of our assets, if any, are protected. We lose assets within 2 generations. So now neighborhoods like South Poly are majority Hispanic, but that Hispanic community can't even vote. So neighborhoods like that get ignored. So while we aren't talking about things like that, in addition to them drawing the maps, it's just counterproductive. But we, in the majority in the Black community, we don't do enough research. We go off of emotions and memes.
Yeah, you couldn't say it better. I didn't think I ever meet nobody say it better than me, but you couldn't have said it any better than that. I mean, that immigration thing was a big deal. Like, and I think, like you
You
said, a
know,
lot of people are ignorant and they looking at D.L. Hughley or something and they like, immigration, Trump is
I
doing
was
this.
so disappointed.
Huh?
I was so disappointed in D.L. Hughley, Ricky Smiley, and Steve Harvey for backing Harris. I'm like, I used to like y'all, but that's when you start to wake up. When you educate yourself in comparison to listening to people on the radio or TV, you can make an informed vote, but you can't let an organization hand you a cheat sheet telling you who to vote for, or let a celebrity tell you who to vote for, and then turn around and say, my vote is my voice. No, it is not.
Yeah, your vote is their voice. That's what it is. Literally, the people with the money, the people with the platform. And I mean, I'm really inspired by you because it's hard to see or not hard to see, but it's not a lot of people that are willing to be genuine. Now, of course, I don't know you that well. You know, this is our first time really talking, but I can sense it on you that you're genuine and that it's time for people with a common sense perspective to have a level of power to some degree that can vote and speak on behalf of the people. Because to be honest, like you said, I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. All my family live in Fort Worth, Everman, Burleson. My mom, she just moved to here with me, but she used to live I put her up in Dallas. I mean, I got family all over the metro and Arlington. I mean, you name it, we everywhere. But if I were to sum it up and say, everybody that I know that live in Fort Worth, Crowley, like that whole metro area, they would love to be represented by somebody like you because you get it. You understand you're not a politician doing talking points, simping for the Democrats. Like, you understand South Poly. When I went to school, Poly was black. It was a little bit more Mexican than the other places, but Poly was black. Polytechnic, we whooped them every year in football, but they were black. All the Fort Worth schools were black. In Fort Worth, see, you haven't lived in Fort Worth as long as I had, but Fort Worth, that mall that's called Fiesta or something like that, off of I think it's 35. I can't remember my freeways. I didn't live there in so long. That mall used to be Town Center. It was a black mall run by black people with all black businesses. Now it's called Fiesta, and Hispanics are literally taking over large swaths of what used to be historical black areas. My grandmother lived in Eastwood, which is right by Mill and Berry. I don't know if you've been in that area, but my grandma lived on Mill and Berry, and on her street used to be all black people. And now half of the street is Mexicans. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but what I'm saying is that we are allowing our communities to get diluted. We are allowing them to influx a whole bunch of low-skilled workers into areas where mostly black people had those jobs: construction, plumbing, landscaping, working at the convenience stores, working at some of the mom and pops. Now it's completely changed, and we're voting to eradicate our vote and voice.
Yeah, but I want to blame. It's a little bit of ignorance and just being ignorant too, because I didn't know before a couple of years ago, I didn't know that illegal immigrants were able to hop over the border, literally, and enroll their children into our schools. I had no idea that was a thing until a couple of years ago. And then that was brought to my attention. But then you mean to tell me that an illegal immigrant can come here and purchase property? You broke into the country, but you can legally purchase property. Meanwhile, someone in my neighborhood has to pass a background check to rent an apartment. Make it make sense. So, like I said, it's not just black jobs, it's black education, it's black housing, it's black resources. When people come into this country illegally, they're not going into gated communities. But until we do the research, the proper research within the black community, and I mean all of the history, not just black history, we won't know that. We won't. But the saying goes, if you want to hide something from a black person, put it in a book. But the thing is, we are well beyond the information age. We have a device called phones that we can pick up at any time. But instead of you dissecting and researching Kendrick Lamar's lyrics, maybe we should be researching something that's going to actually change our way of life, or at least our mindset, whether that's in general, or at least politically.
Now, how can we go and support you? Your Instagram is, what's the Instagram handle? Because I just followed you right now. It's Payton Jackson. Is that what the handle is?
It sounds like you followed my personal one. I would like everyone to follow my campaign one, which is
Okay,
No
perfect.
Taxing with Jackson.
No text with Jackson. I'm gonna follow you right now while we talking. No Jackson. And then
Thank
how do
you.
we donate and support you in this race?
So my website is notaxingwithjackson.com. I am a strong advocate against taxes, both with income taxes and property taxes. But my donate page is on the top. But what I really need, and I mean really need, I need phone calls, emails, and requests being sent to Tarrant County GOP and Dallas County GOP. Because if I do not have full, unwavering support from both GOPs, I will have to run as an independent. And I don't want that. I'm a conservative. I'm willing to pick the Republican Party, but you know how your people vote. You know how your people vote. And if I want to win this very Democrat district, if I want to flip the district, I'm going to need major support from the GOPs. If not, I'll have to just turn it purple instead of red.
Hey, you know what? I tell you what, I think you should run no matter what, but I think we do need the help in reaching out. I'm going to reach out to as many people as I can that know, because I want you to have an opportunity to be successful in this. We just need good people to be in office that have common sense. You know, people somehow think that you got to have a PhD in being a politician, and that's not the case. It's very simple. The people that have done it, the people that have just been knee deep in being politicians their whole life are the ones that are the most corrupt. And it's just like the medical industry. It seems like people go to med school and they have a one-track mind. They told me to remember this and do this because I can only do this. And it's like, no, you have to be able to also think outside of the box. That's why it's good for people to have a dynamic upbringing where you've been educated, but you also have some common sense too. They call it like street smarts and book smarts. You got to be dynamic on both ends.
I agree. And I'll tell you who I am most excited about. But before I start with that, I want to point out at one point in time, Donald Trump said that it was a waste of time being politically correct. And I absolutely agree. I am famous for being unapologetically politically incorrect. And I'm okay with offending you, but that's not my goal. I don't want to offend you. I just want to point out common sense solutions and common sense issues. We shouldn't be talking about gender studies before we talk about financial literacy. We shouldn't have any trans kids. There's no such thing. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But who I am really excited about, these next two generations under me. Now, we say that the youth, they're the future all the time, but I can tell you, being 28 and running for office for the last 3 years, that is not practice. The number one issue I got the last time I ran for Congress, oh, you're too young. You only have to be 25 to run for U.S. Congress. So I embrace all young people to stand to the front lines. And I hate to be ageist, but it is time to remove all of these old people. We need to go ahead and get the job and create our government to be more efficient. Now, I'm a powerhouse, and I plan to do some very demanding things in whatever seat I get first. But when I look at the next two generations under me, I am just in awe because I know that they're not about to go for what the status quo is politically. Like my new campaign manager that I'm bringing on this week for the congressional run, she's younger than me, but I am so excited. And I mean, so excited for her future. I know I'm pressure, and I say that in a very humble way. But I know exactly who I am. I'm very secure in who I am. But these next two generations under me, they are going to make some major noise in our government. But I just wish that we supported them the way that we should, instead of telling them that they can't do something, all because the older community, they haven't seen it done, or they know that they can't do it. And I just seen Trump's address to Roll Tide. Now, I'm an LSU fan all the way, all day, Baton Rouge. But if you go back and you actually listen to what he said to those kids, that's everything that I needed to hear during my first year running for Congress. Because my community, the Black people, the people who I thought that I was jumping into politics for, they did not embrace me, especially Black women. The people that claim to be the most educated, the ones who vote the most ignorantly in this country, they did not embrace me. And it's not because they knew who the incumbent was or that they knew that I wasn't a Democrat. Black women just love to tell other people, especially other Black women, that they can't do something. It's very destructive to the culture in general that we harbor in the Black community. So to any young person watching me, I know I'm not perfect. I know I've made a few headlines, some good, some bad. But please stand up and stand firm behind anything that you believe in. Unless you're a Democrat, then you just stay home.
At least you're keeping it real. At least you're keeping it real. But no, I appreciate you, Payton. I'm very inspired by you. Hopefully I get to know you more as the time go along. I definitely want to support you in any way that I can, because I do believe in the next generation. The positive, see, your legacy is built not only on what you do, is what legacy you leave behind, right? Meaning that if you're doing something empowering, you should be empowering the next generation, because if you're not, your legacy is gone and you have done nothing. So empowering the next generation, you being, much younger than me, I think I'm about 10 years older than you. Yeah, my birthday this one. I think I'm about 10 years older than you. So you being a little younger than me. Well, thank you. But my birthday already passed. It was April 22nd. I am 38 officially. So being a little older than you, I do want to help the next generation, because I feel like you are the next generation. You got the young people of the future. We get it. We're and I'm not saying older people don't, but at some point, people need to do their job and get out of there. There's no reason for these politicians to be in there for 40, 50 years. I think Nancy Pelosi been there since the civil rights movement. You like, ma'am, we were drinking out the separate water fountains when you first started running for office. Like, at what point do you say it's time to pass the torch? You can't just keep the old guard up there all the time,
Well, we do need term limits, but did you hear about Miss Nancy and how they're trying to push her out slowly but surely?
I know. I think she broke her hip or something, and they got to get her out of there. Chuck Schumer, all these people are just dead. Even on the Republican side. Mitch McConnell literally has gone to see Jesus like 3 times and came back in his body. He literally freezes. Yep. You like, bro, you too old. You freezing at a press conference. Bro, you've been eating our taxpayer dollar for like 50 years. Ain't you tired of taking our money? Can you go sit down and retire at some point before you croak in front of the world on national TV? So that's my words, not yours. I don't want to get you in trouble, but no, I agree. We need to. I second that. We need to be open to getting young people there, but we're going to help you. I appreciate you coming on. God bless you. I want you to stay. We're going to close this out, but I want to just chat with you real quick afterwards. But God bless you, ladies and gentlemen, Payton Jackson. And we want her to be the next congressional leader for the 33rd District. She has to be. We need her to get elected. God bless you, and thank you for coming on the show.